My name is Ava, and for most of my life, I've been called the other one. As in, oh, you're his sister. Or, I didn't know he had a sibling. That he, of course, is Nathan, the eldest son, the golden child. The quiet hero who sacrificed everything to support the family. And I'm not here to deny what he did. He worked hard. He stepped up. He helped raise me and bought the house we all lived in. But what no one talks about is this. He wasn't the only one sacrificing. I was there too, watching, absorbing, holding, in my own pain, so there'd be space for his dot. Because when someone in the family becomes the strong one, everyone else gets typecast as lesser, no matter what they're carrying. Growing up, our family orbit revolved around Nathan's success and struggles. If he got a B, it was a tragedy. If I got an A, it was barely worth a fridge magnet. When he stayed up late doing homework, the house went silent. When I stayed up late, I was distracted, and probably wasting time on nonsense. Even the way we were disciplined felt different. Nathan was the investment. I was the backup plan. I remember one night in high school when I told Mom I wanted to take a summer art program. She glanced up from her bills and sighed. Can we not do this right now, Ava? Nathan's trying to save for college. Let's not add more dot, as if my dream was clutter. But here's what they don't know. While Nathan worked part-time to help with the mortgage, I was babysitting the neighbor's toddlers 6 days a week to buy my own clothes and supplies, so I wouldn't be a burden. While Nathan got praise for fixing the Wi-Fi or assembling furniture, I quietly managed our household chores, cooked dinner when Mom worked late, and helped Dad schedule his meds when his memory started slipping. No one noticed because I wasn't loud about it, because I didn't brand it as sacrifice. And maybe that's on me. Maybe if I'd shouted louder, cried more, acted out, someone would have seen me. But I learned early, if Nathan was the sun, then I had to be the moon, always glowing in his reflected light. I remember the day Nathan bought the house. He didn't tell us beforehand, just handed Mom a key and said, "It's ours now." There were tears, hugs, disbelief. Dad called him a blessing from heaven. I just stood there, smiling, clapping, swallowing the feeling in my chest. Because while everyone celebrated his generosity, I quietly knew that I'd contributed to just never enough to matter. When he lost his job, and our parents asked him to pay rent, I was the only one who said it was unfair. And guess what I got in return? Stay out of it. You don't understand. This is between us and Nathan. But I did understand. I understood perfectly what it felt like to be taken for granted. You know what they don't tell you about being the quiet one? It's not just about being overlooked. It's about being erased. Until your own narrative feels like a footnote in someone else's story. I thought about leaving. About cutting ties. But guilt is a powerful chain, especially when it's woven into your DNA. So I stayed. Not for them, but for myself. To reclaim my place in this story. That's why I'm writing this. Not to compete with Nathan's story. Not to diminish his hurt. But to say, I was here, too. And my love, labor, and loyalty mattered. Even if no one clapped for it, because behind every golden child is a shadow sibling, carrying pieces of the family that no one else sees. I didn't plan to show anyone the journal. In fact, I didn't even call it that when I started writing. It was just a spiral notebook I shoved under my mattress. On the cover, in fading Sharpie, I'd written, "Things I can't say out loud." And that's exactly what it became. A graveyard of unspoken thoughts. It started when I was 14. The first entry, a 3-sentence rant, after Mom forgot to pick me up from band practice, because she was waiting on Nathan's interview call. I walked home that day, 2 miles in the rain. When I got back, the house smelled like takeout. Nathan was celebrating. No one asked why I was soaked. So I wrote, "Today I was invisible. I think I'm getting better at it." By the time I was 18, the journal had grown fat and dog-eared, filled with moments like me sewing a button back on Dad's shirt before his checkup, staying up late to fix Mom's printer when she had a grant deadline watching, Nathan cry in the garage because he was scared he wouldn't be enough, and not saying a word. Never resented him for crying. What I resented was this. When he cried, the world paused. When I cried, the world looked away. One entry that still hurts to read. I don't need applause. Just someone to say, "I saw you." That must have been hard. That line stuck with me for years. Because more than praise, I just wanted to be witnessed. I kept the journal locked away. Even when I moved out, it wasn't until Nathan's job loss and the rent ultimatum that something inside me snapped. That night, after Mom defended their decision, Again, I pulled out the notebook, flipped through the pages, and realized I had 15 years of receipts. Not financial ones, but emotional ones. Proof that I was there. Proof that I mattered. The next morning, I placed the journal on the kitchen table. No note, no explanation. I went out for coffee. When I came back, the house was too quiet. Dad sat in the living room, holding the journal like it was radioactive. Mom was staring at the floor. Nathan. He was the only one who looked at me, really looked. Ava, he started. Did you write all this? I nodded. No words needed. What happened next wasn't dramatic. No screaming, no sobbing. Apologies. Just silence. Then Mom whispered, I didn't know. And maybe that was the problem. She didn't ask. She didn't look. She didn't notice until the evidence was in her lap. Later that week, Nathan stopped by my apartment. He didn't bring food or flowers, just his own journal. I started mine last year, he said, after everything with the house. But most of it is about you. That caught me off guard. He continued, I always thought you were the strong one. I didn't realize being strong made you so invisible. We talked for hours, shared entries, compared memories, laughed at how differently we'd experienced the same events. In his mind, I was the one who never needed saving. In mine, I was just trying to stay afloat without dragging anyone else down. There was one moment that stuck with me. Nathan said, remember when you got rejected from art school and said it was fine? I nodded. It was. I mean, sort of. He shook his head. You didn't talk to anyone for a week. I thought you were mad at me. I was mad at the world. I confessed. Mad that my dreams were always optional. It wasn't an instant fix. One conversation doesn't erase decades of silence. But something shifted. For the first time, Nathan saw me, not just as the sister who held everything together, but as someone who deserved to fall apart too. After that, Mom started texting more often. At first, it was awkward. Hey, how are you? Saw this and thought of you. Do you remember the day we made cookies, when you were little? I wasn't sure how to respond. Part of me wanted to ignore her, to hold on to my quiet revenge. But a bigger part of me wanted something else. Not revenge. Recognition. Dad took longer. He's old school. Emotions are like dust, something to sweep under the rug. But one Sunday, after dinner, he said, your brother's always been the strong one. But you, Ava, you're the glue. That hit harder than I expected, because for once, I wasn't the background helper. I was the thing holding everything together. Now, looking back, I don't wish to trade places with Nathan. His path came with its own weight, but I do wish someone had told both of us sooner. Sacrifice doesn't have to come with silence. And love shouldn't mean becoming invisible. That's why I kept the journal. Not to hold grudges, but to remember. I was here. I mattered. Even if no one clapped. There's a photo on our living room wall that used to make me angry. It's of Nathan standing next to Dad at the high school science fair. He's holding a medal, beaming. Dad's hand is on his shoulder, proud and firm. Mom's in the background, clapping. I'm not in the photo at all. What no one remembers, what no one asked is that I'm the one who stayed up the night before making his trifold board. He had a panic attack over it. Cried in the kitchen. Couldn't get the sections straight. I cut, pasted, arranged. While he paced, I glued. While he hyperventilated, I labeled everything with neat marker strokes. Nathan got the medal. I got insomnia and silence. That memory sat with me for years. But I buried it, like I buried so many things. That's what I thought love meant, helping. Quietly. Until the day everything snapped. It wasn't even a big moment. Just a Tuesday. I'd just finished a 10-hour shift at the gallery. My back hurt. My head was pounding. I came home to 3 voicemails from Mom. Each one was about Nathan. He's thinking of applying for that executive program. He's been so responsible with his money. Haven't you noticed? You should call him, Ava. He misses you. I sat on the floor of my apartment and cried. Not because of the voicemails, but because they didn't hurt anymore. They felt normal. That was the problem. That night, I called Mom. Do you remember the science fair photo? I asked. She was quiet. Of course, Nathan won first place. Your father was so proud. I swallowed hard. Did you know I made the board? Silence. I mean, he did the experiment. But I helped him put the whole thing together. He couldn't even look at it without panicking. I didn't know, she said softly. That was the first night I stayed up until 2 a.m. for someone else. I continued. It wasn't the last. There's something strange about telling the truth to people who never asked for it. They don't always know how to receive it. She didn't argue. She didn't apologize, just a sigh, like an old window creaking open after years of dust. I'm sorry you felt overlooked, she said. I wasn't just overlooked, I replied. I was expected to stay overlooked. After that call, something shifted. Not just between us, but in me. I realized I had been complicit in my own invisibility. I never spoke up. I never said, "What about me?" I assumed that being helpful meant being quiet, and that if I wanted love, I had to earn it in the background. With silent service, it took me years to understand. Support isn't love if it costs your identity, and strength isn't real if it requires silence. So I started small. I turned down a family dinner. Told Mom I needed time for myself. I stopped sending birthday cards to people who hadn't remembered mine in a decade. I said no when Nathan asked me to review his resume again. I watched as the guilt rose in me like a tide. But this time, I didn't swim in it. I let it crash, let it pull away, and when it did, I was still standing. I went to therapy. The first thing I told my therapist was, "I don't want to feel like an afterthought anymore." She nodded like she'd heard it before. "When was the first time you felt like one?" I told her about the fair, about the photo, about the journal. Then I said something I didn't expect. Sometimes I wonder if they needed me to stay quiet, so they could keep believing they were good parents. That line stuck in the air like smoke. Because maybe it was true. Maybe my silence was convenient. Because if I had spoken up, they'd have to face what they missed, what they ignored, what they let slide. And maybe I wasn't ready for that truth either, until now. The next time Nathan called, wanted to talk about Mom. "She's been different lately," he said. "Softer, more reflective. Did something happen between you two?" I told him the truth. I told her about the science fair. There was a pause. "Damn, that was a long time ago." "Yeah, but I never forgot," he exhaled. "I don't think I ever realized how much you carried." "I don't think I did either," I said. Until I put it down. We talked for 2 hours that night. Not about him. About his job. About us. Our family. Our patterns. The way I became the background character in a story I never got to write. He didn't try to fix it. He didn't interrupt. He just listened. And maybe that was the first time I ever felt like a main character in his eyes. The next day, I took the photo off the wall. I didn't burn it. Didn't destroy it. I framed a new one next to it. A picture of me alone at an art show I curated last fall. I'm not smiling, but I'm present. Visible. Hold. And finally, seen. It was Nathan's birthday dinner. The kind where we're all expected to show up, dressed nicely. Smile. Say the right things. Pretend that everything's okay. Like a well-rehearsed play we've all performed 100 times. Except this time, I didn't want to play my part. I was tired of showing up out of obligation. Tired of bringing thoughtful gifts and quiet compliments. Of refilling wine glasses and clearing plates while the spotlight stayed fixed on someone else. So I did something different. I showed up late. No explanation. No apologies. Just walked in, sat down, and let the silence settle. Mom looked at me like she wasn't sure whether to hug me or scold me. Dad grunted his usual, "Hello." Nathan gave a smile, maybe the only one that felt genuine. "Glad you could make it," he said. "Barely," I replied with a tight smile. Dinner began. Stories flew across the table, mostly about Nathan's new promotion, his condo renovation, how he might propose to Lila. No one asked me about my recent gallery showcase. No one asked about the mural I'd been commissioned to design. Just another night in the Ava tireless saga. Then Mom raised her glass. "To Nathan," she said warmly, "for always being the strong one in the family. The one we could rely on." I blinked. The strong one. I felt something snap. My hand tightened around the stem of my glass. My stomach turned. I saw myself from the outside, the invisible sibling, again, clapping quietly on the sidelines. I put the glass down, and I spoke. "I'm happy for you, Nathan," I said evenly, turning to him, "but I think Mom's toast needs a footnote." Silence. Everyone looked up. "A footnote?" Dad asked, confused. I nodded. For the years I was the one holding everything together. Mom's eyes widened. "Ava, no, let me finish." I took a breath. My heart was pounding, but my voice was steady. "Finally, I'm glad you're proud of Nathan, truly. But for 15 years, I was the one who made dinner when you were working late. I helped him with homework. I listened to his breakdowns. I stayed behind while he moved ahead." Nathan looked stunned. "I changed my college plans so I could stay closer to home and help. I skipped vacations. I skipped life. But I never got a toast. You could have heard a pin drop. I hadn't planned to say all of that. It just spilled out. I'm not bitter, I continued, my voice softer now. But I won't be quiet anymore. Mom opened her mouth, closed it again. I didn't know you felt this way, she said at last. That's the thing, I replied. You never asked. I excused myself before dessert. Not angrily, just peacefully. I left the wrapped gift for Nathan on the table, a framed photo of us as kids. The last time I remembered feeling like equals. Outside, the air was crisp. Cold, even, but I felt warm. For the first time in years, I hadn't swallowed my truth. I'd released it, and I didn't feel selfish. I felt real. The fallout came the next day. Mom called tearful. Why didn't you ever tell us? I did, I said gently, just not in words. In actions. Every time I showed up. Every time I helped and didn't complain. We thought you were just capable. I was, I said. But that doesn't mean I didn't need care too. That conversation reopened something between us. A long overdue reckoning. Mom began asking more questions, listening more. Not assuming that it wasn't perfect, but it was progress. And Nathan, he texted me later that night. I never realized how much you gave up. I'm sorry. I don't know how to make it right. I didn't ask him to. I just wrote back. Start by seeing me. I'd always thought love meant sacrifice, but now I realize something else. Love also means being willing to take up space, to exist fully, loudly, without apology. Weeks later, I took a solo trip to Vermont, stayed in a quiet cabin, no schedules, no expectations. I painted for the first time in months. One night, I stood outside in the snow, looked up at the dark sky, and whispered aloud, I'm still here. No one heard it, no one needed to, because for once I heard myself. A week after I returned from Vermont, I found an envelope on my front step. It wasn't mailed, no stamp, just my name, written in Nathan's familiar handwriting. Inside was a simple card. Ava, I know I haven't been the best brother. I also know that the way things have been isn't how they have to stay. I'm throwing a small dinner next week. Just a few people, no speeches, no pressure, but I'd like you to come. I stood there, holding the card, unsure how to feel. Odd part of me wanted to crumple it. Part of me wanted to frame it. But mostly, I felt cautious. Was this an apology? Or a peace offering with strings? I didn't respond right away. Not out of spite, but self-preservation. For so long, I'd been the automatic yes. The reliable attendee. The one who showed up even when it hurt. This time, I wanted to show up for me first, so I asked myself the question I used to ignore. Will this serve me? That question led me to do something unexpected. I made a painting. Not for a client, not for a gallery, just for myself. It was messy, unfiltered, sharp lines, and chaotic strokes. Colors I didn't usually use. I titled it Unspoken Hours. It wasn't beautiful. It was honest. The night of Nathan's dinner. I stood at my closet for almost an hour. I wasn't dressing for anyone else. Not to impress or outshine. I just wanted to feel like me. I wore an old denim jacket over a deep green dress with pockets. Simple, grounded. When I arrived at his apartment, the smell of rosemary and garlic hit me before I knocked. He opened the door with a nervous smile. You came. I did, I said. I wasn't sure I would. Inside, everything was casual. No banners, no wine pairings. Just candlelight and mismatched chairs. The guest list was small. 2 of Nathan's close friends. And surprisingly, our mom. She looked at me with cautious warmth. I sat across from her, and we ate. Conversation stayed light at first. Travel, food, funny childhood memories. Then Nathan stood up and cleared his throat. I promised no speeches. He began. So this isn't one. He looked at me. It's more of a confession. My fingers tensed on my fork. I think I spent years pretending I was the only one holding things together. He continued. But I wasn't. Ava was. Too often alone, and too rarely thanked. Stared at him. He kept going. I used to think the silence meant she didn't mind, that she didn't need anything. But I get now that silence can mean survival. Mom's eyes welled. I didn't speak right away. Not because I was stunned, because I wasn't ready to accept it just yet. After dinner, as we stood on Nathan's balcony, he handed me something wrapped in brown paper. It's not much, he said, but I saw it in a shop and thought of you. I unwrapped it. A tiny, antique hourglass. You used to say time always felt like it was slipping. he said. I remember, I whispered. But this one, he said softly, you get to flip whenever you want. I didn't cry, but something inside me softened. This wasn't a full repair. It wasn't redemption, but it was a beginning. That night, I placed the hourglass beside unspoken hours. And for the first time in my adult life, I felt seen. Not just as Nathan's sister, not as the family helper, but as Ava. A whole person. The morning after Nathan's dinner, I woke up feeling something unfamiliar. It wasn't closure. It wasn't joy. It was space. A sense that a little part of my identity had shifted, no longer contorted into everyone else's expectations. I opened my sketchbook and let the pencil move. For the first time in years, I wasn't drawing for a deadline or a commission. I was just releasing. Shapes came first, then faces. And then a memory I hadn't thought about in ages. Me at 17, alone in my room, painting by flashlight, while Mom cried on the phone downstairs about overdue bills. That girl deserved to be remembered, so I painted her. That afternoon, I got a call from Melanie, a fellow artist I hadn't seen in over a decade. Ava, she said, breathless. I saw your piece in that pop-up gallery downtown. Unspoken hours. It's raw. It's ... You. I froze. Wait. What? I didn't submit anything. She laughed. Apparently Nathan did. With your name, no signature, just a label. Ava Walker, private collection. I didn't know how to feel. Grateful, violated, exposed. Maybe all of it. Later that night, I called Nathan. You didn't have permission. I know, he said, and I'm sorry. But I thought the world should see what you've been holding in. I stayed silent. Do you want me to take it down? I hesitated. No, I said finally. But next time, ask. Deal, he said. And Ava, yeah, people have been asking who you are. The next few weeks blurred into something surreal. I got invited to join a collective of underrepresented women artists. For the first time, I wasn't the backup singer in someone else's melody. I was center stage, hesitant, maybe, but finally, heard. But not everyone was ready for this new version of me. Mom called one night, her voice already tight with expectation. I was thinking of hosting a brunch. You, Nathan, some cousins. Sounds nice, I said cautiously. I'll need your help with setup. You always do such a beautiful job. There it was again. The unspoken agreement. Ava helps. Ava arranges. Ava makes it smooth. This time, I didn't say yes. Actually, Mom, I can't. A pause. You're busy. No, I said gently. I'm choosing not to. Another pause. But it's family. I'm still family, even if I don't organize everything. She didn't respond. I heard her breathe in, then out. Well, she said finally, I guess I'll manage. Something cracked open in me then. Not out of cruelty. Out of clarity. Every time I had overextended myself to earn love, I'd called it being a good daughter. But sometimes, love meant not performing. A few days later, I received a letter. Not an email, not a text. A letter, from Mom. Written in her tight, loopy cursive. Ava, I didn't realize how much I leaned on you until you stopped letting me. That's not your fault. It's mine. I confused your silence for strength. Your help for agreement. I'm sorry. I'm proud of the woman you're becoming. Not because of what you do for us, but because of who you are. When you're just, you love. Mom, I reread it 3 times before the tears came. Not out of sadness, out of recognition. Later that evening, I met with the artist collective. We were planning a joint exhibit. Theme, unwritten histories. Each woman was contributing a piece that told a story no one ever asked her to tell. I knew exactly what mine would be. A triptych. Panel 1. A teenage girl vacuuming around sleeping siblings. Panel 2. A young woman painting in the dark. Panel 3. The same woman, standing at a microphone, painting projected behind her title, Inheritance Interrupted. The invitation arrived in a thin white envelope, postmarked from Ohio. No return name. But I recognized the handwriting instantly. Dad. The man who vanished when I was 13. The man whose name no one said out loud anymore. I stood in the hallway, holding the envelope like it might burn through my skin. Inside was a short note. Handwritten, no frills. Ava, I know I have no right to ask anything of you, but I'll be in Chicago next weekend, and would like to see you, if you're willing. Just coffee. 1 hour. No expectations. Tommy didn't tell Nathan. I didn't tell Mom. I didn't even tell myself how I felt. Instead, I walked to the mirror, looked at my face, and said aloud, he left, but I didn't. And still, I showed up. We met at a quiet bookstore cafe in Lincoln Park. He was older, grayer, thinner than I remembered. His coat looked like it belonged to a man trying to appear respectable, not necessarily comfortable. "Ava," he said, standing slowly like he wasn't sure he deserved to. I didn't hug him, but I didn't walk away either. We sat. The conversation started stiff about art, whether mutual acquaintances he only half remembered. But then he paused. "I've followed your work online," he said. "Your last painting, the girl with the bowl of light, that was you, wasn't it?" I nodded. She looked like she was waiting to be noticed. "She was," I said. "And now she's painting her own light." He swallowed hard. "I left because I thought I was the problem. That if I stayed, I'd break everything. That you, Nathan, your mom, you'd all be better off without me." "You were wrong," I said quietly. "I know," he whispered. "I realize now, leaving didn't spare you. It erased you." That hit deeper than I expected. For years, I had buried the ache of his absence beneath duty, behind walls made of usefulness. Hearing him say it, "I erased you," brought something forward. Not forgiveness, but recognition. "I used to imagine you'd come back," I said. "Not with presents, just with answers." He looked down at his coffee. "I didn't have answers, Ava, just fear, and then shame." We sat in silence for a few minutes. "I don't want to rewrite the past," he said finally. "I just hoped to see who you became." I looked at him, the man who missed every milestone, who left behind birthdays and recitals and scraped knees. And yet, here he was, not asking for a redo, just a glimpse. I became someone who's still learning to believe I'm enough, even without applause. His eyes shimmered. "You always were." We didn't hug at the end, but we shook hands, firmly, like equals. And that meant something. That night, I sat down with my sketchpad. Not to escape, to reflect. I drew a man holding a photograph of 2 children. One of them turned to face him. The other kept walking, hand raised but not looking back. Title: "Too late is still something." The next day, I finally told Nathan. He didn't explode. He didn't call it betrayal. He just asked, "How was it?" I told him everything. At the end, he nodded. "I think I hate him a little less now," he said. "Not because of what he said, but because you're okay." That evening, Nathan surprised me by showing up to my exhibit rehearsal. He didn't say much, just watched from the back as I practiced my speech under the gallery lights. As I reached the final lines, my voice trembled. For every girl who stayed invisible so others could shine. For every sibling who picked up the slack and the silence. We see you now. And more importantly, you see yourself. There was a quiet tear on Nathan's cheek. "I'm proud of you, Ava," he said when the lights came up. I believed him. The gallery was full before I even stepped inside. Strangers mingled in front of my paintings, murmuring, speculating, standing still before brushstrokes that had once only existed in the quiet ache of my apartment. My name was on the wall in bold lettering, Ava Corin. The weight of silent rooms. It felt surreal and terrifying. I didn't paint for fame. I painted to make sense of myself, of everything I carried. And now, all those layers were on display. Nathan stood by the table with the wine. He wore a button-down shirt I hadn't seen in years, the one he used to save for job interviews. A small nod to the fact that this night mattered to me, and somehow to him, too. "You okay?" he asked as I hovered near the entrance. "No," I said, honestly. "But I'm here." "Then that's more than okay." The crowd parted when the first speech began. A brief introduction from the curator, followed by a few words from me. I stood beneath the largest canvas I'd ever painted. A family of 4. One parent faded, the other blurred. The 2 children in sharp detail. One turned toward the viewer, the other with their back turned, hands gripping both sides of a heavy door. It was titled, "Exit Wound." "My art isn't about trauma," I said into the mic. "It's about the quiet that follows it. It's about what happens when the person expected to hold everything together is never actually given the space to fall apart." These paintings are memory, yes, but they are also reclaiming. I was the sibling who did the dishes, the laundry, the bedtime stories. I was the second adult in a child's body. And tonight, I get to be a woman with a voice. The applause that followed felt both affirming and strangely distant. Like it wasn't for me, but for the version of me they were just beginning to understand. Afterward, people came up to shake my hand, ask questions, offer congratulations. It was a blur of faces and half-remembered names, until one older woman stepped forward. She had a silver braid and eyes like my mother's. "Ava," she asked, hesitant. Yes, I'm your Aunt Denise, your mother's older sister. I blinked. I hadn't seen her in almost 2 decades. Not since before Dad left. I thought you moved to Portland, I said, still unsure whether I was dreaming this. I did. But I came back. For family. Her voice caught on the last word. We sat near the edge of the gallery, tucked behind a sculpture of falling dominoes. I've followed your work online, she said, and when I saw this show was happening, I knew I had to be here. I didn't know what to say. She looked at me with a strange expression, somewhere between guilt and pride. There's something I need to tell you, she said quietly. About your mum. I felt my body tense. Not again. Not another story. Not another revelation. She wasn't always cold, Denise said. Before your dad left, she was bright, quick-witted, sarcastic. Even I tried to picture that version of her and couldn't. But when he walked out, something in her broke. Not just her trust in men, but in the world. She shut down, on you, on Nathan, on herself. I nodded slowly. I knew this already, in fragments. She always regretted it, Denise continued. But she didn't know how to say it, or fix it, so she doubled down on being strong. Even when that meant disappearing emotionally. I looked down at my hands, remembering the birthday cards signed with just Mom. The Christmas gifts labeled but never wrapped with care. She used to tell me she was afraid, Denise added. Afraid that if she softened, even a little, she'd fall apart and never come back. I swallowed, the knot rising in my throat. She used to say, Ava already handles so much. If I cry, I'm afraid she'd start carrying that too. And there it was, the invisible load I had always known I carried. Now confirmed in words. She knew. She always knew. And she let me carry it anyway. Denise reached into her purse and handed me a small envelope. She wrote this. Years ago, after one of your gallery shows. She never sent it. I found it last week while going through some things. I hesitated before taking it, but I opened it. Inside, on a folded piece of stationery, was my mother's handwriting. Ava, don't know how to talk about all the things I never said. So maybe I can start with this. I saw you. Every late night. Every sacrifice. Every time you smiled when you were exhausted, or sat beside Nathan when you needed space yourself. I saw it all. I just didn't know how to say thank you, or I'm sorry. And now I wonder if I've run out of time. But if this letter ever finds, you know this. You were never invisible. You were everything holding us together. And I love you, always. Mom, I cried. Right there, at my own exhibit. In front of an unfinished sculpture made of broken mirrors and rusted wire. Not because it made everything better, but because it told me something I'd waited my whole life to hear, that I was never just the backup plan. Denise placed a gentle hand on mine. She was proud of you, Ava, even if she couldn't say it in the ways you needed. I nodded, holding the letter close. For once, I believed it. It took me 3 full days to open the letter again. Not because I didn't want to read it, but because I couldn't. Every time I picked it up, my hands started shaking. I'd sit there, holding my mother's words, knowing that for the first time, she had truly seen me. But also knowing that she had chosen silence for years, decades instead. Was that really love? Or was it just guilt speaking too late? I didn't know, but I needed to find out. The next morning, I took the train out to the edge of the city, to the small 1-story house she moved into after retiring. A patch of frost clung to the windows. Her car was in the driveway. Curtains were drawn. The whole place looked like it was waiting to exhale. I stood at the front door for a long time before knocking. The last time I visited her house was 2 Christmases ago. Nathan was there, full of smiles and charm, handing over framed photos of his children. I'd brought wine. We'd all pretended. This time, I wasn't pretending anymore. She opened the door slower than I remembered. Ava, her face seemed to say, not with joy, but with cautious surprise. Hi, Mom, I said, quiet. She blinked. Is everything okay? No, I said honestly, but maybe it could be. She stepped aside without a word, and I walked into a house that felt both familiar and foreign. The walls were the same beige. The scent of cinnamon tea still lingered, but something in the air had shifted, or maybe it was me. We sat across from each other at the dining table, steam rising from her mug. I didn't waste time. I got the letter, I said, from Aunt Denise. Her eyes widened, and then lowered, settling on the tablecloth. I didn't think she'd. I never finished rewriting it. It didn't need rewriting, I replied. It needed sending. A beat of silence passed between us, thick as fog. I wanted to, she whispered. So many times, but I didn't know how you'd receive it. Or if I even deserved a reply. You didn't, I said, and she flinched. But that's not the point. I needed to hear it anyway. She looked up slowly. Her voice cracked. I thought I was protecting you. You weren't. I thought if I held it together, if I didn't collapse in front of you, that you'd feel safe. I didn't. I let the truth hang in the air, hard and sharp, before softening it. But I also understand. More than I ever did. She reached across the table, her hand shaking slightly. I'm sorry, Ava, for all of it. For putting so much on you. For not seeing how it broke you. I let her hand rest there. I didn't grab it, but I didn't pull away either. We talked for hours. About the divorce. The silence that followed. Her depression. My loneliness. About how Nathan became the golden boy, because she couldn't handle both of us breaking in different ways. About how I learned to be invisible. Not because I was unwanted, but because being unseen was safer than being disappointed. She didn't justify, she didn't defend. She just listened, and that changed everything. I used to envy you, she admitted. I raised an eyebrow. You were the one with emotional intelligence, the one who could carry everything and still show up for people. I thought, if I leaned on you even a little, you'd hate me. I didn't hate you, I said. I just wanted you to be there. She wiped her eyes. I'm here now. Yep, I said softly. You are. Later that evening, before I left, she stood at the doorway holding a small box. I was going to throw this out, she said. But maybe you should have it. Inside were drawings I'd made as a child. A dried flower from my high school graduation. A tiny handmade ornament I forgot I'd given her when I was 7. You kept these? I asked. She nodded. You weren't invisible, Ava. I was just blind. I took the box and stepped into the cold. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel like I was carrying the past alone. I was still healing, but I wasn't unseen anymore. Nathan texted me first. It had been weeks since my talk with Mom. Weeks of me replaying every childhood memory under a different light. Like I'd found a missing piece of the puzzle, and now couldn't stop rearranging the whole picture. Nathan, hey, Mom said you stopped by. Can we talk? Just 6 words. But my chest tightened reading them. Part of me wanted to ignore it. Another part, the part that always wanted to be understood, knew this was the final conversation I needed. We met at a coffee shop halfway between our apartments. He looked tired, slightly older than the version of him that had existed in my mind, the golden child with all the right answers. But there was nervousness in his eyes I'd never seen before. Ava, he said, rising to hug me. I let him. It felt foreign, stiff, but necessary. We sat. He went first. I've been thinking about what you said at Christmas, and before that, and also what you never said. He looked down. You're not wrong. I took up too much space, and I let you carry the rest without ever noticing. I didn't reply. I needed him to keep going, not to stop at guilt, but to reach understanding. He took a deep breath. I wasn't trying to overshadow you. I just knew how to make things look okay, even when I wasn't. That got me praise, got me responsibility, and I let it get to my head. He paused. But I also didn't ask why you always stayed quiet. I swallowed. My voice came out steadier than I expected. I didn't want praise, I said. I just wanted someone to ask if I was okay. He nodded slowly. I always thought you were. Because you didn't complain. You didn't ask for anything. Because no one listened when I did. He flinched. I should have listened. Yeah, I said. But you didn't. There was a moment of silence. Not awkward, just full. I know I messed up, he continued. Especially when I let Mom put everything on you. The house, the care, the emotional labor. I knew it was happening, and I still played hero. I'm not mad about the house, I said honestly. I'm mad that I was expected to be grateful for leftovers. Nathan's face fell. Ava, I don't want an apology, I said. I want change. From both of us. We sat with that. To adults. Now, 2 children from a fractured home. Still trying to piece together a relationship that had never been equal. I think I resented you because you got to be the needed one, I said. And I got to be the forgotten one. I resented you, he said, because I thought you got to disappear. That you had more freedom. We both looked at each other the first time with real honesty. Turns out we were both wrong. He reached into his coat pocket and pulled out something. Small, a keychain. A battered one, with a cracked Chicago Cubs logo. I kept this, he said. You gave it to me before I left for college. Said, don't forget where you came from. I blinked. You still have that? He nodded. Every time I moved, I put it on my new keys. It reminded me of home, of you. My throat tightened. Not because the gesture fixed everything, but because it meant something had stayed. I want to do better, he said, not just show up when it's convenient. I know I've benefited from this family's brokenness, and I want to help mend it, not just for Mom, but for us. I believed him. I didn't forgive him all at once, but I believed him. We left the cafe quietly. Outside, snow had just started to fall. Nathan looked up. Remember how we used to make snow forts in the backyard? I always thought mine were better. I smirked. That's because I let you think that. He laughed. Figures. Before parting ways, he asked, so, what now? I thought for a moment. I don't know what comes next. But I know this. I'm done shrinking to make others feel comfortable. I'm done being the quiet one. He nodded. Then I'll stop being the loud one who never listens. And just like that, something softened. A new beginning. Not loud. Not dramatic, but real. That night, I sat at my apartment window, watching the snowfall paint the world clean. I didn't need applause. I didn't need anyone to rewrite history. I just needed to know that finally, after all these years, I had a place at the table. And for the first time, I did.